Welcome to fulfilling this belly sting. A show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great-grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Look at that.
God Morgan, and happy Wotan's Day to you. For those of you who may not be familiar, Wotan and Othin are recognized in the same way throughout Germanic and certainly the legends of the Norse. Before we get started today, I want to say thank you for all of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed. And if you hadn't had the opportunity yet, and you are really looking, hopefully, for some enlightenment each and every day, weekday, please consider following, and subscribing to the show. You can do that on any of the platforms, whether it be TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Streamlabs, any of the audio podcasts. All those platforms are available as well. Also, possible New Reality TV. newrealitytv.com is a new streaming channel that simply broadcasts good vibrations. It raises our frequencies that we may find mental balance, that we can find, obtain, maintain our mental health, because we know spirituality and our emotional states are tied together. All right, so wonderful opportunities. Check out New Reality TV, newrealitytv.com. You will not be disappointed. Many different plethora of different perspectives to look at our spiritual journey. As always, we're available this morning on TikTok live chat, as well as Facebook live chat, for those of you who want to provide some comments and or have some thoughts about today's topic. Of course, today's topic being Wotan, or Othin, depending on when you look at it in history. We know from the historical records, Wotan really began his recognition from the days of the Germanic tribes. Before we really, from a historical perspective, before we really get to the recognition of the Scandinavian people and the Norse, he was recognized as the god of wisdom. That was his big thing. Now, by the time we really understand or begin to record Wotan's journeys and Wotan's accomplishments and acquisitions along the way, we really see him being recognized during his days as Wotan as being much more of a warrior type of individual. As he kind of settled the realms, he worked with his brothers and of course his father Bor the giant, who would help to restore or help to place an order within the realms. And then we see him kind of evolve, if you will, as he moves north and is recognized by the Scandinavian. And certainly as we begin to hear the writings of men like Snorri, who would document all the sagas, we really find him kind of evolving into what we know as Odin. Odin would then be constantly in a quest for wisdom. He sought all corners of all the realms in hopes of gaining this wisdom. He would even be willing to surrender an eye at the Well of Erd to gain much more wisdom. Now, we've spoken about it before. For those of you who are new to the show, thank you. But wisdom is simply the combination excuse me, of knowledge and experience. And those two create a relational table within the mind that allows us to interrelate different stacks of individual knowledge, kind of in a real world application. This is what wisdom is. Wisdom is this interrelational matrix that we create within our mind as we do things, as we experience them. Now, when we experience things, we have to remember, what is an experience? Well, an experience is most often a sensory input based on a snapshot in time. And there's a couple of pieces that are going to come as part of an experience. The first one is obviously the visual, or the audio, or the smells, or the taste, or the touch. So we have a sensory input, which then is interpreted, creates, reinterpreted, and then decided on emotionally, right? So we're going to tie or connect an emotional state to each experience. Okay, so as we take in sensory input, we're going to process it, we're going to feel it, we're going to store it. So these two things then become our experience. Now, as the experiences build up and build this interrelational table between the knowledge stacks, we're going to find that we have this kind of second level, really, of knowledge. So it's more than just book smart, so to speak. It's more than just the individual knowledge stacks. It's now building this interrelational table that relates different knowledge stacks together. A prime example in the modern day world we find in things like auto mechanics, where we may be good at tires, we may be good at engines, we may be good at body work, we may be good at these individual pieces of car maintenance or car repair. But then as we do more and more things, they interrelate. Obviously, you have certain skills that are going to relate to all of those things. So we turning a wrench, understanding the metric system, maybe. All of these different skills are going to apply then to fixing our car. Well, we can now kind of suppose, if you will, if we're really good at, say, engines, and someone comes to us tomorrow and says, hey, can you help me change my tires? We probably got a pretty good run at it, right? Why? Because we have this wisdom, this bridging relational experience that says, if I can turn a wrench on an engine, I can turn a wrench on the wheel, right? And take the wheel off and do what I need to do there. So this interrelational thing is really what Odin sought. Now, in Odin's case, when he was seeking them, one of the first things he did was discover the Well of Erd. Now, when my ancestors have explained to me my connection to the realms and how I'm interrelated, how we're interrelated, they describe that as me being a leaf on the tree. right? So I have a center post of energy connection that is my stem, if you will. And that stem goes up into the spiritual realm where it connects to the branch of Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil, according to the Norse legends, was the center tree of life. It's what everything connected to. Anything that has life connects to Yggdrasil. We connect through the stem to a twig, which then connects to a branch, which then connects to the trunk, which then goes all the way down to its roots, and the roots then are divided in a couple of different places. Well, one of the primary places that one of these roots existed was the Well of Erd. Now, according to Norse legends, at the Well of Erd sat the Norner sisters. The Norner sisters, there were 3 of them. And in very much the same way that we read about the Fates in the Greek legends and lore, we read about the Norn sisters who kind of acted in the same way. Now, according to the legends of the Norse, Erd, the eldest of the 3 sisters, was kind of responsible to tell us spiritual beings, as we bonded with our physical bodies, how long that bond was going to last. She would say how long we were going to live. And we kind of agreed to that, whatever that number was. So if she said, hey, you're going to live in this physical form for 50 years and then you're going to leave it, and that's the way it is. Okay, done. We agreed to that before we assumed the bonding with the physical form. Then we ourselves, our mental, our heart, our passions would then drive us for the dash. The dash, of course, meaning that marking, and it looks like a little line, that's between our birth year and our death year. That dash is then up to us. We have to drive that. We have to make decisions about that, and we are ultimately responsible. At the end of our physical life, when we leave this physical form, we ascend into Yggdrasil. On Yggdrasil, Skull would be waiting for us. Now, Skull, her middle sister, she would be the one that would then determine where we would reside until Ragnarok. Which hall? Now, for those of you who don't know or may have some misinformation, there were only certain people or certain individuals who would be carried by the Valkyries. Now, the Valkyries, for those of you not familiar with those are the woman warriors of Odin's, and certainly of the heavens. And their job was, among many other things, their job was to deliver the honorable, the glory full individuals who would have perished in battle to one of 2 places. Now, in legends, 50% or half of those who died in battle would then ascend to be with Odin in Valhalla. Valhalla, of course, being the great hall of Odin in Asgard. Valhalla, of course, is where you would then reside, feast, drink, fight, have fun, live life until Ragnarok, at which case we would all rise again to fight the final battle. 50% would then ascend to join Freya in her great hall, where you would again reside until Ragnarok. So 50, but this meant that we died in battle. Everyone doesn't get to go, or doesn't want to go, doesn't need to go to Valhalla. That's just not the way the legends are. The legends say you must die in battle to ascend to be rescued or carried by the Valkyries to either Valhalla or to Freya's hall. So we have that going on. But anyway, back to Skald. Skald would then decide based on your tapestry. Now, the youngest of the three sisters, Verdande, would be sewing your tapestry. And she's going to sew your tapestry not on the accomplishments of your life. This is not one of the walls that we see written by the scribes of Egypt or almost any place, where we're kind of chronicling the deeds of the great warriors, of the kings, of the pharaohs, of those individuals. We're kind of chronicling this on the walls of the tombs and the like. That's not what Verdande sewed. Verdande sewed a tapestry that showed how you responded to the events in your life, emotionally, intrinsically, how you responded. Did you use fairness? Did you use equality? Were you honorable? Did you exhibit courage? Were you were you industrialness? Did you have hospitality? Did you greet user? Did you have gratitude? All of these different things is the things that Verdande would sew. Now, once Skald reviewed this tapestry that Verdande had sewed of your life, she would then kind of invite you to a hall where you would reside until Ragnarok. The thing about, as I've read the legends, and certainly as I've spoken with my ancestors about these legends, the very idea that Verdande was not sewing a chronicle of our life. She wasn't, talking about all of our conquerings and our strength and all of those things. She wasn't writing that. She was sewing a tapestry that showed how we responded, how we were kind, how we were supportive of our clansmen and women. This is what she noted. Which means, to me, it meant that was really more important than chronicling my life's accomplishments, what I had acquired and what I had accomplished and what I had conquered and all those things. She wasn't interested. She was interested in what kind of person was I down here. And so that's a very important tip. Now, we're going to take a real quick break, but when we come back, I want to touch base about how we can take our journey of wisdom to the next level. All right? So we'll be right back and we'll talk about our journey towards wisdom.
In the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
Thank you. Thank you for taking that quick break with us. So let's talk about how we acquire wisdom. Now, before I get going on wisdom, I do want to give a shout out to JT Wolverine. Thank you so much for your comment. And while you're accurate in your statement, we have to elevate a little bit higher. And that's what we're talking about here is wisdom. So I appreciate your comment. I really do. And I'm so thankful that you've joined me this morning. Let's talk about how we get wisdom. Now, wisdom, as I mentioned, is really the combination of knowledge or intellect, however far you want to break it down. Wisdom or knowledge plus the reuse of that, the deployment of that, the experience of this knowledge, whatever it is. Those build into a higher level of inner relations called wisdom. Now, how do we build wisdom? Well, let's follow the sagas of Odin as he tried to discover how I mean, as the traveler, he visited worldwide with his ravens, Hugin and Mugin. They would then journey throughout the world and bring back knowledge and wisdom to Odin that he would then use to build even more and more. Now, in this case, we know that the experiences that the ravens brought back to him would have been secondhand, but nonetheless, it was experiences that they had witnessed and they had had. Now, according to the sagas, Odin would go to the Norse sisters at the base of Yggdrasil, where he would barter that he would donate a physical eye that he may drink from the well of Erd. Now, it's a well. Why do I want to donate one of my eyes? When Yggdrasil's root comes down into the well of Erd, Yggdrasil, of course, drawing water from the well that it may support itself in its function. But as that root reached into the well, into the water of the well, we find the experiences of all life throughout Yggdrasil being reflected in the waters that Yggdrasil was drinking. This meant that contained within the water, were these experiences, were a reflection of these experiences that all of the life forms that had ever been and ever will be are having. When Odin donated an eye that he may drink from the well of Erd, he was drinking these experiences. Okay? So it was like he was getting one of those matrix things where they plug the thing in the back of your head and you got all kinds of knowledge. That's kind of what he did, but he drank it. Right? So as he drank this water from the well of Erd, he was gaining all of the experiences throughout Yggdrasil. Now, the legends go on to say that he would take 9 days and 9 nights and that he would ponder all of this experience, because let's face it, he just lived trillions of lifetimes of experiences that he ingested. And so they were percolating, they were processing. And what they were doing is, within Odin's mind, they were relating all of these different knowledge pieces together. They were building this huge matrix that covered all of these different knowledges, right? And so kind of brought them together as to how what they meant in the great big picture of existence. So he was building that table. This goes to say that you and I are having experiences every millisecond of every day. Think of your lives as the things that you are seeing in front of you as being experiences, frame by frame. Okay? If you were constantly just taking pictures of that life that you're having, this is really what your sensory input is giving you, is these snapshots, right? And then as that snapshot is received by the brain then says, well, how do I feel about that? Obviously, depending on what my mood is, i.e. my emotional filters set behind my sensory input, what my mood is how I twist that image that you give me. So snapshots coming in of an experience I have, and my mood changes it. This goes to say is, if we looked at the same image, all of us stood around and we all looked at the same exact picture, we would all pick out different things within the pictures that we saw. Firstly, this is because our moods or our emotional filters are set in such a way based on how we're feeling. So if we're feeling joyful and gleeful and comfortable and peaceful and harmonious, we see things within the picture that represents that. If we're feeling grumpy or saddened or depressed or whatever that is, then that's what we see in this snapshot that's coming in. All right. So we're really setting ourselves up to see different things within the experiences that we're going to be given. We're doing that. Inadvertently or not, that's what we're doing. Is by setting those emotional filters, we're forcing our brain to only recognize certain pieces of the experiences that we're having, right? And we're going to see that in a certain way. That's the way it is. Okay? That's the way your brain functions. That's the way we see these experiences. So our emotional filter is the first thing that we have to figure out in life how to manage. How do we make sure that we're in the best position to see reality? Reality as it really is, not the reality of, I've heard the term rose-colored glasses. Wonderful term. And really applicable here, because as we put on these glasses, we're going to see our image a very different way than had we not had these glasses on. So very applicable as we bring in our our sensory input, right? So we're going to bring in this sensory input. First thing that's going to happen is our emotional filter will manipulate the image to see a certain thing. Once that manipulation is complete, then it's going to drop signaling down through what my ancestors referred to as the well of the self to gain an emotional connection to that image, right? Now, remember, we're not actually interpreting, we're not actually responding to the actual picture. We're responding to what we think the picture is. Our mood has now altered the picture, and that's what we're responding to. That's the emotional energy that we're going to now generate. Now, as this signal comes down to the well of the self, it's going to arrive at the bottom, hopefully all the way at the bottom, where we're going to have our values, our intrinsic values, what we hold dear, what makes us us, is going to address the image. And we're going to release biochemistry into the body. This is an actual physiological thing where we're going to release chemistry, hormones, from the heart into the bloodstream that will then come up to the brain and be processed. From a visual perspective, I like to say at the bottom of this well is the river of biochemistry. And that river is going to float up through this thing called the sheath of truth. Now, this sheath of truth is, of course, a visualization provided by my ancestors as well, and simply says that we have so much bandwidth that we can actually process emotion. Because you got to remember, emotional energy is probably where you spend your brain and your heart and everything spends the most time working with. Okay, particularly your heart, obviously, but your brain has to interpret this. So, a discussion for another time, but suffice to say, we're going to enter into the sheath of truth where only so much can be processed. We'll get to the other side where we get to decide if the energy that comes out of the sheath of truth is what we want. Again, if all the information that we've received and our mood and everything is telling us, man, we should just be angry and we should have this and this, that, and the other thing, but there's another part of our brain that says, no, I want to be happy. I want to be joyful. I want to be, comfortable, right? Content. I can switch that energy at the last moment before it becomes a memory. Now, just before it becomes a memory, we're going to get energy that comes back from the process, and it's going to reset these emotional filters. So if we've said, we're grumpy, everything processes, comes up, says, yes, be grumpy, be angry, and we say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to be happy, we're going to be joyful, harmonious. That feeling then resets our emotional filters to now process the next present differently. We're going to process it now with this underlying emotion of joy, of harmony, of peace, right? So we have a choice, and we can choose to be joyful and happy and content and comfortable, and deny the energy that would try to influence that one way or another that we don't want to go, right? If we make a choice, if we make an oath that we are going to be happy, then we are going to be happy. We can do that, right? So wisdom teaches us, Othin and his example teaches us, that we get to make the choice as to how we're going to process all the experiences that we have. Every millisecond, nanosecond of every day is a different snapshot coming at us. It's coming into our physical sensory input, whether it be through our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, our fingers, any other part of the body. All of these experiences are bringing in sensory input to the brain that's then processed through an emotional counter before it becomes a memory. Now, once it becomes a memory, you may remember, memories are then connected not only to our physical brain or our sensory input brain, but it's also connected to our spiritual brain or our spiritual self. The memories, our interpretations of those memories lie between those two hemispheres of the brain. Now, in what I've been explained and what I've been shown from my ancestry is that these three parts of the brain work in conjunction under an umbrella called our consciousness. Consciousness is simply where our focus is, right? So if we're awake, alert, moving around, doing stuff, interacting with the world around us, our consciousness is kind of sitting forward. It's connected to our physical brain and our memories. Now, some of us may say, man, as I get older, I find memories are kind of slipping. Well, that's because our consciousness can adjust in size. So whether we're covering, a huge swath of the brain, or whether we're just a little slice, okay, that expansion of our consciousness is completely up to us. We drive that. We inform, we enlighten ourselves. And enlightenment, of course, is the process of expanding the consciousness. Ultimately, our goal is to cover the physical brain, memories, and the spiritual brain all at the same time, right? So when we're awake and alert and doing stuff, we're actually able to communicate with our spiritual brain, which, by the way, is connected 24/7, 365, before our death before our birth and after our death. All of these times, our spiritual brain is connected to the spiritual realm. Now, spiritual realm includes infinity of knowledge and experiences that people have had or will have in all of existence, right? So all of that is available in the spiritual realm. So by our spiritual brain being connected to it, many may say, well, I have this skill where I kind of have premonitions of the future. Absolutely understandable. Why? Because the spiritual realm doesn't have this thing called time. It doesn't recognize past, present, future. It doesn't recognize that this group of experiences and knowledge came from the 1400s, and this one came from the 2700s. Doesn't care, right? It's all experiences to them. So as we touch the spiritual realm with our spiritual brain, it's easy to then pull these future looking experiences to process, to be able to process through our brain, emotional, and build our experience. All right. So, Wotan's Day, big day, and a very important day that we celebrate the explosion or the acquiring of wisdom in our lives to establish our personality, our growth, and certainly our perspective of the world around us. So, a super important day of the week. So, for those of you who haven't visited us tonight, we'll have Sporksmall where we'll answer a question that you've asked. If you haven't had a question answered, by all means, visit our website, norsewhispers.com. There you can scroll all the way to the bottom, look to the left, the big orange button that says Ask Me a Question. Ask me a question. Let's get a dialogue started. If I make a show out of your question, then I'll send you a free t-shirt. So it's a win-win. Possible dialogue and answer, free shirt. So, join us tonight. You can join us right here on New Reality TV. You can join us on Facebook, TikTok, or YouTube, or even on Streamlabs, where we'll talk about whatever the question is for tonight. And again, if you get your question answered, it's a free shirt. No shipping, no handling, no nothing. All you got to do is sit by the mailbox and it'll show up. So, ask those questions and we will get you a free shirt on the way. All right? So enjoy Wotan's Day. Embrace your quest, your personal quest for wisdom and experiences in life. And I wish you the absolute very best. We will see you again tonight where we will answer this week's question. And remember, tomorrow we're going to talk about the mental strength. We talked about making a choice and making a decision as to where we're going to be. Now let's talk about how we can back up that decision and make sure that we hold our decision, whatever that is. All right? So tomorrow we'll talk about Thor, of course, one of the major gods that we know traveled from Germania into Scandinavia. Wonderful representation of strength, both of physical and mental. So we'll talk about him tomorrow. So in the meantime, you have yourself a great Wotan's Day, and we will see you again tomorrow, my friends. Love and light.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.